Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
Welcome to another edition of the All Out Leadership Podcast. We are on week 2 of creating Raving fans. A young psychologist was a student, but he was drafted into the Army, and while he was working inside of the mess hall, he wanted to test a theory that he had. So he was given the job of passing out apricots at the end of the chow line, and very few people wanted the apricots. And so he thought, I'm going to apply some of the psychology that I'm learning, and I'm going to do a test. So a first group of men walked by, and he asked this question: you don't want any apricots, do you? 90% of them said, no, we don't want any apricots. So the next group that came into the mess hall, he tried this. He goes, you want some apricots, don't you? Surprisingly, 50% said yes. Then the next group that came into the mess hall, he said this: would you like one dish or two? 40% took 2 dishes, 50% took only one, and only 10% didn't take any. What is that? That is the power of positive suggestion. What Jesus does in this story that we looked at last week, the story of a leper coming to him, kneeling down, saying, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And Jesus reaches out and touches the man, says, I'm willing, and he heals him. What we see is this power of positive suggestion, that Jesus is going beyond just words. He's going on to show that I truly value who you are. We said last week, it's hard to make somebody feel like something when inwardly you believe they're nothing. And often we're saying one thing, but our behavior is sending another message. And we want to harness the ability to just really tell people in multiple ways that you are valuable, that we care about you. And then ultimately what you're going to see is you're going to see a positive response. So we talked about Jesus valuing touch over talk. And there's a lot of people who have talk, but they don't take it a step further like Jesus did, and that is actually touch people's lives and say, hey, we actually care about you. So we're going to pick up with that, and I want to just give 10 simple ways that we can regularly touch random people inside of our life and ultimately make a great difference. If you apply these to your customers, you apply this to people attending your church, to maybe people that you're leading, maybe you're a boss and you just do this with your group of workers or people on your staff, you're going to also find that their sense of value, their sense of worth, their sense of, hey, you actually care about me, you're going to see some positive results because of the power of suggestion that you're telling them, hey, you matter and you're valuable. Number 1, introduce yourself to them. I know that sounds so simple, but we live in a culture where a lot of people just avoid people. Here at church, we have a lot of people, they slip in late, they slip out early because they just don't want to have to connect. And I get it. I'm kind of a little bit of an introvert myself. Naturally, I tend to want to be that way too. And you have to get outside your comfort zone and meet people. And sometimes, you know what, that's just hard. But God created us to need relationship. Every customer coming through your doors, even if they kind of put out the, power of suggestive message like, hey, leave me alone, inwardly, they really do want to feel valuable. They really do want human interaction. They've probably just been hurt a lot. So go out of your way and just find somebody and introduce yourself to them. Now, if you're a member here at Element Church and you are a member or a volunteer, just make this part of your regular weekly routine. When you're at church, look for people that either look like they're brand new, maybe they look like they're lost or they're confused if they're carrying a visitor back. And you know what? Just go up to them and just introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Fred. Hey, what's your name? So great to meet you. Glad you're here. Welcome to Element Church. Can I do anything for you? Can I show you around? Can I answer any questions? And when we have enough people do that, everybody coming through that door is going to walk out of there going, wow, that is just a friendly group of people. I didn't like that guy preaching. His sermon wasn't any good, but man, that is the friendliest church I've ever been to. And you know what? There's times that people will simply come back in spite of the message because they just want the human interaction of being around people who actually cared. So go out of your way to introduce yourself to people. I love certain environments, businesses that I go into, and it's part of their culture. You walk through the door, hi, welcome to, and they state their business. There's a particular inexpensive pizza place where they make your pizza fresh for you here, and I love that place because, one, it's cheap, two, it's really good. But you know what? If I'm having a bad day, I walk through that door and I always hear, hi, welcome to such and such. Glad you're here. Is this your first time? What can we do for you? And they're all trained to do that. There are certain companies that I've been impressed with because when I go ask an employee, hey, we're such and such, there's that type of employee who goes, it's on aisle 17. But then there's the other employee who goes, hey, you know what? It's on aisle 17. Let me take you there. And they'll walk and stop what they're doing and walk me all the way to that location. Then there's an employee who takes it even a step further. They talk to me while they're walking on the way. Hey, so glad that you're with us today. What brought you in? What can I do for you? And they build a relationship on the way. Be that type of person because what you're going to find, you may not have the product they're even looking for, but if you'll be friendly, you'll introduce yourself. Next time they have a need, they will come to you first. Number 2, touch them by remembering their name. A lot of us aren't naturally great at remembering names. And I came across this one time in a book, and I've applied it ever since, and it has dramatically increased my ability to remember names. And so it's this. Use a person's name 3 times in the first 5 minutes of an introduction. It will greatly increase your ability to remember their name. So you meet somebody. Fred, hey, so great to meet you. So, hey, Fred, tell me, where are you from? Are you from around here? Are you out of town? Fred, I just want to thank you for coming in today. Can I answer any questions for you? Well, Fred, it sure is great to meet you. 4th is a bonus. So the more you can use their name, and it really honestly feels awkward at first, but just in sincerity, you're learning their name. And another thing is if you, and I'll do this sometimes, I'll just get out a little notepad in my phone and I use my notes and I write that name down. And then I'll review that name from time to time. I try to put a word picture to that name if possible, because few things are more beautiful to a person than the sound of their name. And few things say you're valuable like remembering their name when you walk into a business. There's a local restaurant here, and the receptionist, she's amazing. Every time I walk in there, she goes, hi, Eric. Good to see you today. And she just remembers my name. There was like a month and a half I didn't go into that restaurant, just got busy and was tied up in other things and went to some other places. I walk in, hi, Eric, welcome. Haven't seen you in a while. You doing good? And I'm like, I love that and I value that. Be that kind of business. Next, touch them with a smile. When you talk to them, when you're using their name, remembering their name, smile. Roughly 70% of the meaning of every human interaction conveyed is through non-verbals. Learn to smile. McDonald's, 40% of their sales come from Happy Meals. Why? Because people like happy. Why is a dog, and not a cat, by the way, a man's best friend? Because they're happy. Because when you walk in the front door, no matter how bad your day is, and no matter how stupid you were, because we've all been there, your dog just thinks you're the greatest thing in all the world. I love that about my dog. He just goes crazy when, actually, my wife stole my dog. Sunny, she just loves my dog, and so now my dog, he likes me if I got food, but he just absolutely loves my wife, Sunny. And so, anyway, Sunny, when she walks in the door, he just goes ecstatic because he just loves her. So I read this one time. The face is capable of making 250,000 different combinations of expressions, and it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. So actually, you're working harder to frown than you'll work to actually put on a smile. There's a bank here locally that I do business with, and I go in, and there's this lady there, and she just never smiles. And you know what? I actually pray for her. Every time I just go, I don't know what's going on in her life, but she just looks like she's just going through some stuff and looks like she's had a hard life. And she just doesn't know how to smile. And I feel sorry for her. And I don't even think she realizes it. But just, you don't want to be that, okay? Abraham Lincoln was looking to fill a particular position in his cabinet, and somebody suggested a particular person. And he goes, I don't like their face. And the guy goes, well, how can that person be responsible for their face? And Abe said something very genius. He goes, anybody over 40 years old is responsible for their face, because we have the choice whether or not we smile. It's really a choice that we make. Now, the fourth thing is this: have consistent eye contact. So you introduced yourself, you're exercising their name, you're smiling while you talk, and then you know what? Keep constant eye contact. Now, this is tough for people like myself with ADD, because I tend to be distracted by all the other things going on around me, that other person walking behind them. Oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. And so I have to deliberately go, I'm going to just focus on them, look at them in a non-creepy way, provide them eye contact. If you'll do those four things, you're going to just communicate value to that other person. And we're going to pick up next week, and I got just a few more practical things on how you can communicate touch over talk. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out leader.